we're going to race down to the valley. So welcome to this episode of Heartbreak Garage, and this is my Sunday, and I'm looking at my brother-in-law's Ford Fiesta. Now she's the 1.25 variety and it's a 59 plate, but due to some weather circumstances that happened last week, there was water everywhere, the roads were full, the rain was horrendous, and since then we've had an engine management light. Maybe you can see it on the dash there. She's not flickering, but the GoPro will make her flicker. And then she idles perfectly, there's no misfire. But when you give her a bit of a rev, oh, she's struggling. So we've got a engine misfire, engine management light on, and we're also, it's due an oil and filter, so we're going to do that as well. So I got some spark plugs and bits and bobs, and we're just going to make it happen. So if it don't fit, don't force it, and let's see what we got. I'm going to go down here first, and we'll find the 16 pin OBD plug in there, and we're going to connect to it with a scanner and see exactly what we got going on. I love these Fiestas, they're absolutely amazing. Forget your Corsas, forget your Kias and all your other shit. If you want a cheap little motor that's going to do you right, get you one of these. They won't let you down, in mint. Alright, anyway. So, a little at-home scanner for all things scanner-wise is the Snap-on Solus Ultra. She's old, but she's good. Ford. Loading database. Let's try system ID, see if you'll find it. Petrol. Okay. Powertrain control module. Service codes. Memory. Key must be on. Engine off. Yeah, okay. So there we go. She finally loaded up, and we've got a P0301, which is cylinder 1 misfire detected, so we're not on a multi-cylinder misfire. Now what I believe's happened, that everything got soaked in water, including the plug leads and the coils and everything, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the coils, the coil or the leads. What I think's happened is that everything got soaked and she started missing on number 1 because of the water, but then that's fouled the plug and obviously led for a plug failure. So we're going to start with just simply changing the spark plugs and examining the plug that's in cylinder number 1 and seeing what it looks like, see whether it's, you know, what's going on there, because on idle she doesn't miss, and then slightly up the rev range she doesn't miss. It's only about when you put it under load, about 1500 to 2000 RPM, she starts to misfire. So I think we've got a plug problem rather than a lead or a coil problem or anything like that. So that's where we're going to start. The beating heart of the beast. Coolant's all good. Right, so here we go. Plug leads, coil pack. And these are quite good, these ones, because all the plugs leads are different lengths, so you can't get them confused. So yeah, all these are mint because none of them are the same length, and we can already see there's still water in there, which is not ideal. Oh yeah, loads of water. Why is there so much water in there? Right, hang on a second. We'll be needing some of this. So I've got myself a syringe. sucked as much of the water out as I can, and so now I'm going to pull the spark plugs out, see what we've got going on. So if you get one that's difficult to get out, just use your plug lead. There you go. So I'm going to pull this one out as well. The good news is there's no oil down there, because that means there's no leakage from the rocker cover, which is great. They all look pretty good except that one, which is not a nice colour and doesn't look like it's been firing properly, so that's where we're at with that. Now what I am going to do is, because there's a load of crap in there and bits and bobs and there has been water in it, I'm just going to spin it over before I put the plugs in, just in case anything from on top of the plugs has gone inside the cylinders. Hopefully it'll fire out. So we've got the Bosch variety of plugs, because I like them, for these. And we're going to check the gap and the condition of all of them before we fit them. Alright. Good gap, it's not been dropped. No, it is. 2. And they're all the same, Bosch R6s. Now, I see people, they put grease on them, anti-seize and all that. Don't put anything on your spark plug threads. Just don't. It's not. You don't need it. They're changed at the right times. It's not. There's no point, and it gives you a false sense of tightness as well. You over tighten them. It's just not good. You don't want it on there. Snug them down and then give them a turn. Spray the old WD and pop them in nice. Wait for the click. 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 See what happens. So we're back behind the wheel and we've got the fault code, so we're going to go back out And we're gonna go down. We're going to delete the fault codes. Clear emissions related data. Diagnostic data has been cleared. Continue. And then we're going to, just because we can, we want display trouble codes. No trouble codes present, so cleared her out now, because there's no point in doing it if you're not going to do that, because if it starts messing about again you don't know what's going on. So let's turn that off and move you out the way. So ignition off, ignition back on, let the fuel pump prime, and then so she's still on cold start now because the idle is high. It should, if we leave it idle, it'll then drop slightly. So the idle's now coming back down. Right, so we're at idle now. There's no cold start in operation, so we can just lift the revs. 1500. And it was missing in between 1500 and 2000. So yeah, so we've cured that. Now what we need to do is change the oil, because this has been run for quite a few days now after this with this misfire. So all that unburnt fuel will be now sitting in the sump and in the oil, and it will have diluted the oil. So we're going to give her an oil and filter change. It needs one anyway, it's about the right time, but we need to do it because all that unburnt fuel will be sitting in the oil, and that ain't no good for your crank bearings or your hydraulic lifters or your cam followers and bits and bobs. And you don't want your oil diluted. It's thin enough anyway, this 530 stuff. We don't want to make it any thinner. So we've got our oil filter, Bosch, and we've got a new sump plug, so let's get on with it. So I propped one side up on an appropriate pavement, jack and an axle stand on the other side. Have a bit of a look at the tyres, they're all good. Quick inspection, but what I have noticed is, if I get the tour, the old drive shaft oil seal's weeping a bit, so we're going to have to address that. Both sides by the looks of it, so let's stick two of them in. But this is what we're after right now, the old sump plug. So we've got the obligatory bucket, and I like these because it's got a poury spout on the end of it for jobs at home, so it's nice to take it to the tip and dispose of it correctly. So she's a 13mm. I think Eamon must have put that on last. Christ almighty. Right, bigger thing. Back again. Right, so we're going to ditch the ratchet. We've got a small breaker bar. And I brought along the 19mm spanner for a bit of extra leverage. Oh my gosh. Crikey Charlie. That was tight. I hope the oil filter's not that tight. And I've run the engine a little while to get the heat up in it. Right, so with the oil drained, I took the sump plug out of the packet, which has taken me longer to get the sump plug out of the plastic packing than it has to do the whole job. So we're going to put him back in there and then move on to the oil filter. wipe. And we're not going to put it in quite as tight as what it was when it came out. That was ridiculous. It was probably my fault it's that tight anyway. There we go. There we go. She's pretty rusty. And we're on the move. Come on, darling. Right. Let's try it. Oh no, still too tight. Oh, let's go down. Happy days. Perfect. Right then, filter top. Now everyone and his friend will say, oh, you need to make sure that you put oil around the seal. Well, there's loads of oil on there because I just took the old oil filter off. So I'm going to leave that on there. I am going to check that the seal has not been left behind on the engine, which it hasn't, and that the new seal on this one is in good order and it's the same filter, which it is. And we're going to screw it on. There we go. And we'll give it a wipe, just because we can. There we go. Perfect. This is the oil I've got and what I'll be using. She's a 530 and it's for petrol and diesel vehicles. She's a Syn Plus Ford synthetic, which is what you want. And there's all the interesting stuff. So that's what you got. Just something I'll tell you. When I take the cap off the oil when I'm draining it, I put it in the slam panel on top of the latch for the bonnet. And if I forget to put the cap back on, I won't be able to shut the bonnet because there'll be a cap in the way. Now it might break the cap, but at least I'll know I forgot to put it on. Now this street is on a slight slope, and although I got the front jacked up and it on the curb, the car is actually sitting level because we are on a slope. You always got to do your oil when you're level. And the light goes out immediately. That's what we want. If your light stays on for more than 5 seconds and you've got rattling, you've got an oil pump or an oil problem somewhere. So if your oil light's staying on for more than 5 seconds, you've got issues. That's normally my rule. So now we've ran it, we'll leave it to settle for 2 minutes, and then we will re-dip the oil again and just have a quick once over of the car. So we've run it, we'll re-dip the oil, as expected, it's dropped a little bit because now the oil filter is full of oil. So I'll take the cap back off and put it on the slam panel again, just in case we forget. Add some oil. Now, don't rush it. Give her a minute to drain on down. Can't just put the oil in and expect it to show up on the stick immediately. You've got to give her a minute. Let her take her time. You know, don't rush it. I think that's enough. Look at that. She is bang on the mark. Perfecto. So now we'll reinstall the cap. We know that's good. That's good. I've done the washer fluid, so we're all good. We'll spray some of the WD-40 around for a bit of water displacement. Displacing water. Ready to fight another day without a misfire, with clean, fresh oil that isn't contaminated with unburnt fuel. All that's left to do now is give the car a quick walk around. After the vehicle walk around and inspection, everything looks good except this thing here. So the check strap's loose. You can hear it clicking away, and that's not good. And on Fords, these are bad for it, so we're going to tighten this up. But we can also see that it's actually cracked the pillar there and ripped the spot welds out, so I'm going to have to weld that up for him as well. So I might do a video on that in the future. And there we go. Not good. Just by tightening the bolt up, we've already made it sound 500 times better. So there we go. Happy days. Once again, thank you for your loyal service. There we go. No more misfires on the Fiesta from my chest cam. If it don't fit, don't force it. So that was me sorting out that little Fiesta. Now what did we use to sort this out? Well, first of all, we use a diagnostic tool. I've got my snap-on one. It cost me a lot of money, but you don't necessarily need that. You can get one like this, a little OBD2 reader. It comes off the internet web pages that you can go on and buy stuff. They're like 20 quid. Now, it won't do everything, don't get me wrong, and you might struggle with some stuff, but it's enough to go in and observe and delete emissions related fault codes. So stuff like misfires, EGR problems, exhaust gas problems, injector issues, you can do it with one of these. So you don't need all the gear, you can just spend a few quid if you want to try it yourself. So that's that. We also used a handy dandy syringe to suck the water out of the plug holes before we pulled the plugs out. We used a 16mm plug socket, that's the small one in your kit, an extension bar, a ratchet, and that was the plug deal all done and dusted, and a bit of WD-40 and a magnet on a stick. To do the sump plug we needed a 13mm socket, and if you want my advice, use the 6-sided variety, not the multi-point ones. So 6-sided socket. The ratchet wasn't good enough, so I had to get the mini breaker bar out for that, but we also used a 19mm spanner for the extra leverage. To get the oil filter off, because I didn't have a strap, I used a reasonably sized hammer and a reasonably sized screwdriver to get that out of the way. To make life easier, I had my torch and that's awesome. That's what I had to do. So, you know, I use my Snap-on scanner, but you could use one of the ones off one of the websites that you can buy and get next day delivery. 20 quid, do it yourself. Garages these days are charging £80 an hour, some more, some a little bit less, but nonetheless it's expensive. So you could get a few of these gadgets and try it yourself. Depends how competent you are. But that was me. That was a couple of hours, well, an hour and a half out of my Sunday. If it don't fit, don't force it. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon.